Around 2 a.m. on February 26, 2021, I got a telephone call that changed my life forever. For a nanosecond, I must have passed out. The jovial disciplinarian, my ever-time conscious daddy, had transitioned. Decked in my two-piece, I headed to work and I managed to get through the day like nothing happened. I didn't shed a tear. For months, I never cried. It was so real to me. Dad took a trip and he will return soon. At least that was what I told myself until I saw my gallant dad put in the ground. Loss separates and connects. On this episode of Beyond Banter, my girlfriends and I discuss dealing with loss, and we hope this encourages anyone dealing with the loss of a loved one.
Today I'm joined by my sisters Pamela, Adesuwa, and Anne. Hello ladies, welcome.
Hi. How you doing?
Nice to be here with you.
Oh, it's exciting to be here.
It's been a while.
Yes.
It's good to see your faces. For me, this session is more like a therapeutic session with my sisters. So please join us as we discuss. What has been your experience with loss?
Can I bring a Christian perspective to this?
Yes, please.
So I think even as a child, when it comes to loss, I usually think of it in terms of where's the person going. Like that is always the first thing that comes to my mind. Where is this person going? And I always had this belief like if it's heaven, then we're okay. Everybody's fine. And there's just this momentary feeling that is sort of fleeting that comes. And I think for me, it has always been an experience that I usually know before it happens. It has always happened, like when my granddad died, I knew. You just have this feeling. Oh yes, you just have this feeling, and then the next thing the call came. So it's like you grieve before it comes. You know, so you just know something is going to happen. So I didn't understand how to deal with it until now. That also when you start feeling like that, you should start praying and preparing everybody that something. Okay. Like I think when I got really respected was when in the office somebody's relative died, and I had known that this person was in the hospital and everything. Do you know that morning nothing was, I just knew that something was up, and immediately it happened. I just knew. And I ran into our office. It was in a good place. And I don't also believe in death as it were, in the sense that as a Christian, as a child of God, I know that we are just here. It's passing.
So from what you said, one thing just caught my attention in terms of being able to discern before loss happens. And as Christians, if we are connected spiritually, we can actually tell some things that are going to happen in the spiritual realm before it happens in the physical. Interesting. So, Anne, let's hear from
a very, very real case that sometimes I'm not even sure if I've gotten over it yet is the loss of my mom. I'd lost my dad really early, so it had always been, my mom and I had been a tag team for so long. So it was just really not something that you know is going to happen, but you feel it's going to happen several years from now when the person is like really old and grey. So that season when my mom fell ill, I think she was ill just for like, it wasn't up to a week. You know, I got a call one Saturday morning and they just told me, I remember vividly, I was sitting down on my couch and I was having my cup of coffee. And it was just that Saturday, that kind of Saturday where you just feel like, I'm just going to chill today. And somebody just calls and says, you need to call Lagos. And then I called my sister-in-law, and then she just told me that mom had been feeling a bit off, but they were taking her to the hospital, and she just wanted to let me know because my brother was not in town. So I just felt it was the regular, like blood work, you know, malaria test, typhoid test, and you know, she'd be fine. But she was treated and then she went back home. But she wasn't just getting better. You know, for my mom, just like Adesuwa said, I definitely knew that she knew that it was time. But we were not ready to let go because we felt she was just 65. So what is she talking about? Like it was time she had done what she needed to do, and it was time to go be with Jesus. And so it's tough. It's really tough, although you know that the person is going to a better place. But it's just that feeling of parting from the person in this life, like I wasn't ready to let her go. So
they know when they want to leave.
Yes.
Because my dad also had that thing with him as well, in terms of he had told my brother where he wanted to be buried.
Wow.
He had talked about him wanting to be buried in the church premises. He had even talked about the land and the area. But nobody told me he had that kind of conversations with them. Because if they had told me, I probably would have been prepared.
Which I freaked out sometimes.
And then he wrote a biography. He did an autobiography and talked about, I remember the last chapter of the biography talking about once you are 70, prepare to return to your creator. That was like 3 years. He now died 3 years after.
Wow.
So all of that, I was just like him being a professional that he was and all of that, not knowing that he was trying to prepare us.
Yes.
Now, when he was alive, we didn't read that autobiography because we felt like we know that enough. But when he died, everybody was looking for copies of that book.
Wow.
Because that was the only thing. That was the only way you can hear his voice again.
Yeah.
Or read his art or read his experience. So all the questions I couldn't ask him in person, I had to now go back to that book to start reading. So that also brings us to the point of don't take people for granted. I recall that there are times that my dad would call me when I was at work and I would tell him I'll call you back. Like, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back, and I never called back. And then after he died, there were days I would be in my room and I'll be looking at the bare wall and I'll be saying, God, please let my daddy appear now. I want to see him, I want to talk to him for one last time. But then he was here at some point and I didn't return his call. So all those kind of things are experiences that we have, but are also learning experiences for everybody.
This is also a learning experience for me because my dad is still alive and I do this a lot. I'll call you back, those calls that you just never make because you're too busy. So thank you for sharing. So going forward, the fact that I still have my parents alive, I will take that seriously now. So thank you for sharing. Yes, and you always just want to push it and say, if I take this call now, daddy will not get off the phone or more, especially with my mom. I would say, I will not take the call now because I want to get home, you need to get comfortable. Yeah. But you can actually take a minute and or be more intentional to return that call. So this really resonates with me. It does. Thank you.
So, now talking about Pam's experience.
Okay, so for me, I lost my uncle, which is my mom's younger brother. And I had a dream about it, and I knew that he was going to pass, but that was the time in my life where I was still growing spiritually. And I wasn't really sure, how God is speaking to you and you're still in that place of it's in your head, is the Holy Spirit really speaking to you? So when it happened, I began to take, that God speaking to me more seriously. I became more, how I want to also change my prayer points to be, Lord, let my spirit man be more sensitive. It didn't make it any easier, but it helped with another dimension of, okay, when the Lord is speaking to you about something, how are you handling it? It did shake my faith because we had prayed about it. Yes, as a believer, you know that, okay, there's an afterlife, but it shook my faith because sometimes you pray so much about something and you just want God to come through. Yes, he was ill. He was really ill. Like he became a shadow of himself. And we prayed, we waited, we fasted, you just want God to come through and you're, speaking in faith and all of that. But as I have gotten older in age and in my faith, I now understand that, yes, when it's time, it's time. And
to that is that sometimes God also does it. The Bible says everything God does is good. I didn't understand it. God also does it to protect you. So who knows if you remember that story in the Bible about King Hezekiah they told him he was going to die.
Yes.
I hope I got the name of the king. And he prayed and asked for 15 more years. But do you know that 15 years, what was the essence of it? Because he made nonsense of all the good things he did before, and he didn't die in faith. So maybe God was saying, my guy, yeah, come on, so that you could enter, so that you enter inside. Yes, no, but he asked for more, and he just scattered all the good things that he did. So I think what can be worse than that is missing your God's will and destiny for you. Because you may say, let me stay, let this person stay. And you're staying out of God's will, and you're going to just end up where you're not supposed to end up. And God is saying, you know what, just come and rest. That might be deep, but it's something to think about.
Me too. So we are people of faith. And when that happened, because for me too, like your uncle, my dad, when he was ill, we prayed. Like we fasted. And then there will be this, they will tell us, it's better today. And everybody will be like, glory. And we're going to have testimony in church. And then we're encouraged. And then the next 2 days, they tell us he's in critical condition. So that emotional, it was more like a torture. Yeah, for like almost a month. And then he finally dies. And throughout that period, you were praying, you fasted. At some point you have these conflicting emotions that you feel like God is answering you and you feel like it's time for him to go. And when that happens, finally, and he goes or they die, we are bound to fall into another state of being in terms of depression. We lose touch with everything about life. You just kind of start to wonder, I mean, what is left here? For a minute or two, you lost meaning.
Exactly.
And I recall for me, when my dad passed, I didn't cry. I was not in town. I was away from work. I didn't cry. I was numb. So at some point, I felt like I was not normal. And so I got back to Abuja, and then the Sunday after I went to church. It was in the church service, sitting down, that I cried like a baby. I cried so much that I was like, my clothes was wet. People were doing praise and worship, so nobody knew. So I was able to shout and scream when and I was crying in the service. And after the service that day, I had to meet my pastor, Reverend Sam, and I had to tell him that like I've lost the drive, because I'm always this person I'm driven to do things, and I'm if my father, someone that is that huge giant that gets things done, can just fall like that and just die like that, what's the point? Why am I even pushing for things to happen or change things in this world? And then he told me the fact that he died is the reason why you should work harder and push faster and reflect on the things he had told you and the assignment he had and things that connect you together, and let that be your motivation to push forward. And that helped me. So, but talking about your experiences, talking about your experiences now in terms of, well, how do you cope during that season? Because typically on a regular day, it's more of you run to God. But when you now feel like you've been praying to God and God did not now hear you.
Almost like, oh, you stood by and let that happen.
Yeah.
Why am I going to come to you?
So
it was hard. For me, I resonate with what you just spoke about, because my first reaction was numbness. I was just numb. Because, okay, in my family, I'm the third out of 5. And I've always been that on-the-go person that just tries to break down, what are we going to do now? This is what everyone is expected to do. Kind of like, I like to just take charge, create a to-do list, what's expected of us, that kind of stuff. So I think for me, my coping mechanism was to jump into planning, making sure that the burial, happened at first. That was the first thing. The point in time where I finally connected and, let it go was actually at the point where, where they do the wiki and then they open the casket, for you to go just be with the person, for some final minutes and all that. So I think it was that point in time, just seeing her laying there, it really hit me that, oh, okay, everything that I've been, running up and down trying to get done was because she's really dead. So I think that was where I lost it. It was like I just had to step away, and then I just went to find some corner to really scream and let things out. And then after that, it was a whole lot of trying to go back in time, bringing up the conversations I'd had with her, trying to just draw strength from all the things that we had discussed, for the family, my siblings and everything, just trying to connect with the good times. Okay, generally speaking for me, I don't know how this is going to sound, but I feel like our culture around these parts, like Nigeria, I don't know how about other African countries are, but I feel like there are certain aspects of our culture that I've never really been able to understand. That ability to turn somber things into a circus, I can't get it. Because I feel if people are grieving, you're supposed to be a source of support and strength, not come with an entitlement mentality or feed me. Like, why am I feeding you when I'm hurting? Why am I bothered that, you came to offer condolences and you left saying you didn't get a bottle of drink? And then because of that, you're going to water down everything that my mother stood for or whatever her life was about because you don't deem her as successful as she should have. It's always been, I've never really agreed with that culture. And I think to a very large extent, that also informed how my siblings and I insisted my mother's burial was going to be. We decided it's about our family. It's a difficult moment. We just want to be together, celebrate her life, and just do what we need to do, and just honor her and just, go. We're not all about the, fanfare, the circus, if I could call it that, because in Nigeria I think it's a circus. You have thousands of people come, you have live bands, you have canopies, you have food, different types of food. Some people are cooking in the back, some people are bringing caterers, some people are saying, okay, we are from the in-law side, this is our food, we are from this person's side, this is our food, in case our own guests don't get, like, totally losing sight of what's going on. So yeah, we decided that this was what we're going to do. We made it as small and as, intimate as possible, with family, and yeah, it turned out well. So I think our culture is not very, it's not very
friendly
for
those grieving.
at all.
I think that you were really blessed too, because some people can't get away from that. The elders will come to your family and tell you, we can't put this person in the ground until you give us our food, until you kill this number of cows. I'm serious. They must do all those rites.
We've been talking about dealing with loss, and we've talked so much about people that we love and we've lost. And this is a topic we would not exhaust today. Final words to those, anyone grieving right now, what is in your heart that you'd like to share from your own experience? So I would like to start with Adesuwa.
Why? Okay, I don't know, what's just in my head is just hold on to God. There's good in everything. It may not look like it at that point, but He'll explain. And if you really hold on to Him to explain, He'll explain.
And I would say go through the emotions. And as in be in your feelings. I really, really worried for Anne. Because it just seemed as if she was just not going through the emotions. Don't ever want to jump from step 1 to step 10. If you want to cry today, let it out. Go to step 2, you're mad, you're angry, go ahead. Step 3, like that, go through the emotions. I'm very in touch with my emotions, and I feel like with loss, just let it out.
Okay, I would like to say that there is no end point. Sadly, I can't give you that, encouragement. There is no end point. Some days you feel that you've got it, you're good. And 2 hours down the line, you're going to be a whole big blubbering mess, wondering why are you gone? Like, there's no end game to grieving. in terms of you would still miss them from time to time, but just to hold on to the fact that you're going to see them again. And everything always works out together for good in the end. So you'll be fine, a day at a time.
Right. For me, I would say everything works together for good for those who love God. There's a purpose in the pain, really. For me, when my dad passed, I found purpose, including talking about this, having this conversation today, having this talk show. Everything I've done from the day he passed to today has been a nudge from the experience of dealing with the grief. So try to just find the purpose. What is God saying through this grief? God knows everything He's doing. He's not confused. He knows everything. Like, we are all just in this world. God already has a script. We are all supposed to be here acting out our part in that script. Sometimes we struggle. We go offline. We struggle. We go off points. And then our life derails. But once we align ourselves with that script, act our part. Sometimes when we are receiving the loudest ovation, that's when God will say, leave that space.
Yeah.
So just enjoy whatever God brings your way. Trust in Him, work on your faith. And be good.
I'm Councillor David Gardner, and councillor in Woolwich Common, where James was our chairman for many years and treasurer before that. But I first met James when I was chair of the whole constituency party of Greenwich and Woolwich in 2010, I think it was. And James was very new to being involved in the party then. And we really got on very well. He was someone that you were naturally sort of drawn to. And he was very keen to make a difference. He was very keen to make a difference for the Labour Party. But I think more than anything, he was keen to make a difference for his local community, for the people that he lived with. And what John didn't mention is not only the physical transformation, but the sense of community there now is in Barnfield compared to what there was when James, with others, started to get involved and started to do things to bring that community together. Barnfield did have a bad name once upon a time, but through James's leadership, the efforts and support of other people like Susan, like John, like Councillor Ivis Williams and many others, the community now is one of the best communities that we have in the borough of Greenwich. And James's leadership was crucial. And what shone through to me about James was his sense of values. He had those great endearing values, and his value of community, which you can see here in the way he built the church, which you can see in Barnfield in the way he led the Renaissance of Barnfield. And you can see it also in the way he led Woolwich Common Labour Party to be one of the most effective campaigning branches in our local party, having been fairly dead really beforehand. James was tremendous in that, but also he had this great sense of justice. James would always give a homily at the beginning of our meetings. It was sort of a state of the world, a state of the party, a state of the country sort of homily really. But it was always around the need for justice, the need for housing people could afford, the need for respect in dealing with our societal issues like crime and so forth, and the need for us to come together. He was a great one for justice and social justice. And then he also was a great one for respect. James respected people of all religions and no religions, although he himself obviously was a very committed Christian, which underpinned his values. But he respected everyone of all ages and all backgrounds. But above all, the value that really stood out for me for James was his sense of integrity. He could not stand for people that double dealt. He was really someone of huge integrity and honesty, and he stood by his principles, and he never put his own self-advancement before those principles. So, and he really showed that time and time again. But he was also very, very loyal, clearly loyal to his family, loyal to his church, loyal to the party, whoever the leader was, and loyal to his community. He was a real driving force. He was a leader, but someone who led quietly, and he was brilliant at bringing people together. He will be sorely, sorely missed in the local party and in the community. May he, and I know by his family and here in his church, I know he's gone to a better place, and may he rest in peace.